Chapter 1. Introduction. I will always maintain a true principle, even if I stand alone in it. Joseph Smith, DHC 6:223. Faithful and uncompromising saints have often been thrown into prisons, dungeons, and suffered torture or death. Many were deprived of everything but a meager sustenance of life, with prison their permanent home and death their final release. But with faith in their cause, they were encouraged by the scriptures, which described a similar fate for many of the ancient prophets. Some were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Heb. 11:35. Jesus made many promises to those who would suffer such trials and persecutions. He said that men shall separate you from their company and cast you out, but he added, Rejoice ye in that day, and leap for joy. For, behold, your reward is great in heaven. For in the like manner did their fathers unto the prophets. Luke 6:23. Thus Christ's faithful disciples were expected to carry the cross of sacrifice and suffering. From out of the chambers of torture, and the solitary gloom of dungeons, or death in the crackling flames, heaven, for reasons within itself, watches in loving approval. God's consolation to his faithful disciples was to fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and then he adds further encouragement by saying, Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Rev. 2:10. For these peaceful soldiers of Christ, unlike the armies of men, their death became a mark of victory. Persecution became a heritage for the saints, for persecution is a cleansing process for the church. As tribulation came upon the disciples of Christ, only those who were willing to sacrifice everything would remain faithful. Thus, as long as persecution continued, the church would remain pure, but as opposition decreased, then compromising converts were added to the fold. Through these weak and unstable members of the church, Satan gained a foothold in Christ's kingdom. So when persecution ceases against God's people, it is usually because they have compromised with their enemies. But there is no union between the Prince of Light and the Prince of Darkness, and there can be no union between their followers. When Christians consented to unite with those who were but half converted from paganism, they entered upon a path which led further and further from the truth. Satan exulted that he had succeeded in deceiving so large a number of the followers of Christ. He then brought his power to bear more fully upon these, and inspired them to persecute those who remained true to God. None understood so well how to oppose the true Christian faith, as did those who had once been its defenders, and these apostate Christians, uniting with their half-pagan companions, directed their warfare against the most essential features of the doctrines of Christ. The Great Controversy, Ellen G. White, p. 50. And Christ was not without the temptations of compromise with the Prince of Darkness. Satan came to the Son of God while he was in the wilderness to offer him the kingdoms of the world and the glory thereof. But Jesus would not concede one jot or tittle of the gospel, and he never made a concession or a compromise with men or the devil. He thereby established a pattern for all men to follow. But Satan meets with much greater success when he presents these same temptations to other men. This master deceiver has gained inroads into the minds and hearts of some of the most devoted saints in God's kingdom. To obtain worldly honors, to gain special favors, to be influenced by close friends, or to be relieved of suffering, many faithful disciples have lacked courage and conviction, and therefore made concessions in their faith. Every man, at various times in his life, will meet with the great tempter, and each man must travel through that spiritual wilderness for a trial of his faith. They may be brought to their knees in the dark hours of a Gethsemane, and a few more may have to carry the cross of Christ to their own Calvary. But this is not an end, it is another path to God and life everlasting.